We are live.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Community Recreation Committee meeting for the 3rd of March. What I'll do is I'll just begin with a prayer and then we'll get started. Thank you, Almighty God. We give thanks for the blessings which have been bestowed on New Zealand. Laying aside all personal interests, we pray for guidance in our deliberations, that we may conduct the affairs of this committee meeting with wisdom and humility, for the public welfare and peace of our Nelson community, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you for everybody who's attending today, some from near and some from far. The magic of Zoom, which has been beneficial in many senses, but I guess it's also in some ways made it more difficult. But I think this meeting is reasonably straightforward and we're all very experienced at this. But as far as people are sure very familiar with using the app regards to the tick or cross when it comes to voting. Also put your hand up if you're wishing to speak, but if you do need to get my attention, by all means wave a hand. I'm more than happy to do that for general indications of things, and we'll try and have a break every 45 minutes, but please once again either message or raise a hand if anyone needs anything, or if we need to pause for any reason. We have a confirmation of order of business. Just to let you know what we'll do as it is on the run sheet, as it is on the agenda, but the Modeller's Pond naming topic will come first. That will come up after confirmation of minutes. I'll just go through apologies. We have an apology from the Mayor, an apology from Councillor Rainey. Have I got anyone else I've missed? No, thank you. Can I have someone move that we... So Rachel...
Excuse me, sorry, Councillor Skinner, I did have my hand up. Are you wanting us to use the reaction hand to ask a question? Yes,
please. And like I was saying just before, use those, but if you do need to get my attention or you missed it, please pop a hand up or so forth. So as much as the formalities, I'm happy to pick a hand up, but that will just help me see who's in order and who's waiting to be. And just a reminder to take the hand down, or your signified hand down on the screen when you don't need it. Yep, no, go ahead, Rachel. Was there any other questions you had?
Yeah, so I've got board strategy day to head to, so I'm going to be heading off shortly after 10 a.m. So I'll be an apology from then.
Okay, thank you for that. And Judine?
I'm happy to move the apologies.
Thank you. So I've had it moved, have it seconded by Councillor Courtney for apologies for the Mayor and Rainey. Those in favour? Aye. You can put a hand up if you need quickly for this one. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 4, confirmation business is confirmation of order business is an agenda, but we've got the Modeller's Pond naming come up first. There is no public forum, and as usual with interest, please let us know if you think there's a conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest coming up in any topic. What I'll do is I have a confirmation of minutes, which is pages 7 to 16. I'll take those as read, and I'll take those as true and accurate, unless there's any questions or corrections. I see none. Can I have someone move it, please? Moved by Councillor McGurk, seconded by Councillor Brand. Thank you. Those in favour? Aye. I should get in the habit of putting the tick up. Reactions. Get this up to the putting a tick up. Those in favour, tick up. Aye. Crossed, against, carried. Thank you. Just bear with me if I'm a little bit slow getting these buttons on. Cool. So the mouse is playing me. Here we go. Just about. Cool. Very good. So that moves us on to, there's no chairman's report. The Youth Council update I'll have after the Modeller's Pond. So I've got the Modeller's Pond renaming, and that's a report being presented by Andrew Pethram. Now, just keep in mind, Andrew Petham's calling from a bit of a distance, and there may not be the greatest signal, so just bear with us there. Thank you, Andrew. I'll hand it over to yourself. It's Andrew Petra. Can you hear us okay there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. There's a little bit of
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
we can hear you. The signal's not brilliant, but we can hear you, and we may hear us if we get you to repeat something or so forth. And thank you for attending this, because I think you've been on leave at current, and you've made the ability to present your report.
Okay, Mr. Chair. Shall I make a start? Can I assume that you've all read the report, and are there any questions that relate to that report that I can answer?
So I've got a question from Councillor Edgar.
Yeah, I'm just seeking some clarification around the process, because it says that it's got the recommendations, and then I think it says that next steps it's going to a hearings panel other. So hearings panel other is normally made up of councillors, but if we've voted for it here, that would give us a conflict of interest around the hearings panel other. So is that hearings panel other, is that able to have independent commissioners, or what's the process there?
That's not the sort of question I'm afraid that I can answer, Councillor Edgar. Maybe is the acting chief exec or the chief exec present?
Chief executive's present. Here, I'll see Pat.
So one of the problems we've got at the moment is our naming policy is set up for roads and streets. And the delegation for that sits with the hearings for any naming sits with the hearings panel other. But we thought it was important that this committee supported that name before it went to the hearings panel other. So no, we hadn't considered that there would be a conflict of interest. The hearings panel other would consider this, knowing the views of this committee. But can I say that one of the things we are doing at the moment is, as a matter of priority, is revisiting that naming policy. One of the things we've got to sort out is we need a process for the councillors to decide whether they wish to approach iwi for a name for significant facilities, and then understanding that once we get gifted a name, that there is tikanga and protocols about accepting that name. So that it's one of the consequences of our closer working relationship with iwi is working out how we adapt our naming practices to this new world that we're embracing.
Thank you for that answer. So I acknowledge, it's really good to bring it to this committee before going to the hearings panel, but I would suggest that if someone here votes saying we accept the name, we support the name, to then be seen to be making an independent decision on a hearing panel other, to me, you're not making an independent decision. So if the hearings panel other can be made up of independent commissioners, that would, to me, be the better procedure from here. Because I'd like to be able to support this name here, but I can't see how we could sit on both.
We'll seek some advice on that point and make sure that the hearings panel other is appropriately set up to make that decision when the time comes.
That'll be lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Brand, and then Councillor McGurk, and then Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, through the chair. I just would like some clarity around understanding the tikanga, and I think Pat just sort of touched on it briefly there. And I see that we have our pāngia on in the meeting, so maybe she could just help me understand the process around the naming, because the past experience that I have in the information and the education, I suppose, I've received from Kamatua and the other namings and blessings and other things, starts off with when an area has been used for a particular purpose and that purpose changes or the purpose leaves, and then a farewell blessing has been provided, and then a welcome one is done to the new location or the new purpose of that place. And I understand in the past on other things that I've been involved with that the name comes at the end, not before the project's actually started. So I'm just trying to understand how that aligns with the education that I've received from different kaumātua across the top of the south. And I'm just sort of wondering if maybe that is the naming coming up so early in the process, when I didn't even know about it prior to basically hearing about after the fact that a name had been gifted and where that process fitted in. So I'm just trying to, I suppose, make peace with the different information that I've been given from different kaumātua of the top of the south iwi in the process that they have, and how the name came about at the start when it was a blessing to turn soil to start the project. So if someone could just help me understand that, I'd be really grateful.
Thank you. Is Pat or Panioli, you able to answer that?
So I can provide some insights into Māori customary practice around naming, and so you're right, and it really depends on the occasion. So normally you would bless the site, and if there was a structure that would be installed, it would be named when it's opened. So our internal process, as Pat mentioned, is being reviewed and to incorporate some of the overlap between tikanga Māori practice and with naming. So we've had examples of blessings and buildings that have been named, or structures or taonga that have been named, where council officers will will invite kaumātua and iwi to conduct a ceremonial event. And normally with that ceremonial event, the kaumātua will automatically assume that they're going to name something. So they wouldn't normally ask permission, and I suppose that practice needs to be known by those who have engaged kaumātua to be a part of the ceremony. So with Green Meadows, for example, kaumātua were invited to bless it and to open it. And the night before, they decided they were going to offer a name to the building. And that's normal practice. When kaumātua, it's normal Māori practice to name the building. So when similar to a marae. And the discussions that I had with kaumātua prior to the naming taking place, they're given all of the information about the purpose of the building, and they'll do their own, they'll have their own discussions about the historical significance of the landscape, and they will come up with an appropriate name for that building that embodies everything that it represents. And so Green Meadows, they gave the name and they called the name on the morning of the dawn ceremony. And the name, and they shared the name with everybody to echo the name and to bring the building alive. And so that's what their practice is when they're naming things. And the same thing happened with the taurapa. When the taurapa was installed at the dawn ceremony, that's when you understand the name, and they'll give the explanation of how they came up with the name and why it has the name. But they're given all the information prior to the event, and then they share the name when they think it's appropriate. And the kaumātua felt that it was appropriate to share the name for the modeller's pond when they did. But typically for an object, and I think it's because it wasn't an object, it was a site, it was wanting the site to come alive and talking to the site and giving its name. So, and I suppose our kaumātua are not here to talk to that for you, of why it was that way for that occasion. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It certainly provided clarity. Sorry, I've got a bit of an unstable Wi-Fi, so bits dropped out. So I'll just quickly sum it up that basically the kaumātua feel it's appropriate when they name the space or place or object, and in this situation it was to do with an environment and not an object, so therefore they felt it was appropriate for it to come back alive and bring some new energy into the project. Is that what it was?
Yes, that's correct, to my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I've got Councillor McGirt.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And I really appreciate the answer from Panya, because that was the question I had about what we did with Putangatangi, Green Meadows. So really appreciate the response from the Kaihato there. It's very, very helpful. The other one, I'm just wondering about the hearing panel other. I'm just wondering about the test and the word conflict of interest turning up. But I think I'd probably get some advice from the Chief Executive, provided the members of the hearing panel other approach that decision to make with an open mind, that would be sufficient. And one of the things that they would consider would be the decision of a committee, not the individuals of the committee, but the committee.
So that was my thinking when this report passed our review, but in response to Councillor Edgar's concerns, I will be following that up with our legal counsel to make sure we have that right. But I think that's the case. But if it's not, then we will have to appoint three independent commissioners may have to appoint three independent commissioners to make that decision. But I think the open mind test will be the critical thing.
Right. Thank you.
I suppose one of the things is this is unlikely to be a decision that's going to attract judicial review, but we will consider this and make sure that we are secure in our process. I assure you of that.
Cheers, that. Thank you. That I've got Councillor Noonan.
You're on
Councillor
mute,
Noonan,
Carol.
you'll need to unmute.
Oh, that was a waste of breath, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following on from the conversation that's just been had, a couple of things. So first of all, I'd like to request that the Chief Executive's comments are actually minuted so that we can follow the sense of the meeting. Quite often only resolutions are minuted, but I think it's important to get a little bit of the story behind our discussion and why we've gone there. And I guess the question arises that can you actually recommend something and then be open-minded about it? So maybe that's the question that the legal people will be asked. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of chicken and the egg. And Pat, do you know when we last looked at the naming policy? Are we due, overdue?
No, I don't know when we last reviewed it, but this review is being driven by the fact that it's not fit for purpose in terms of naming new facilities, and that's what we're trying to change.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, definitely need to change. It's not going to be Modeller's Pond for much longer, so appropriate. Thank you. That's all I have, Tim.
Thank you. Then I've got Councillor Sanson and then Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. I just like to say that I'm happy to move the recommendation and appreciate the gift of the name Te Pā Harakiki.
I'm happy to
Thank you for that. I'll still take questions. We've got Councillor Laurie.
Oh, I'm happy to second, Tim.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Laurie, just making. Yep.
I just add, picking up on Councillor Noonan's comments before, whenever a committee makes a decision that's a recommendation to a council, we make a decision and then we go into that next part with open minds. And I see parallels here. So I think we should just move on, to be honest.
Well, I'd have to interrupt since you've named me. Hearings panel is quite a different thing from a council decision. Maybe Pat could clarify that.
Sorry.
No, I have no further comment. I think I've outlined what my view was, and I will be getting that confirmed. And if my preliminary view was wrong, then we will be making sure that the hearings panel other is set up.
And that works for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Pat. You're on mute, Tim.
Thank you for that. Cheers to that. Hey, I'm just saying, hey, thank you for the questions. Just give an opportunity. Any other questions? I'd like to thank you for the report. Very detailed, and I know the topic which has come through rather quickly, and I've obviously had to thank you, Pat and others, and Andrew. I've had some discussions when that came about, the process on that, and I'd raised a few concerns on how to sort of come about, and just ensuring that all parties had been aware of this naming happening, and it has identified, maybe in writing, we'd need to have a bit more of a step-by-step and a policy on that. Some of that I would have thought a little bit of common sense or understanding. There's a lot of organisations and groups been involved in this project for a long time, and yes, it definitely does need a name as we move from one asset to changing of this asset, and I think it'll be a great asset for all the community moving forward. So thank you for that. And it's probably this project, Modeller's Pond, has, or Tahuna recreational areas we now call it, before its naming is adopted. It's probably opened a whole number of things in regards to where we can go better and more transparent. But once again, I think it's been a very positive project overall, and the name that's been given is a very beautiful name that has been offered to us by iwi. So thank you for that. I've got a mover by Councillor Sanson and a seconder by Councillor Laurie. No debate. So I've got Councillor Edgar, just quickly, something there? No, I see a tick up there. So voting. I'll put it, those four.
I'd like to debate. We didn't have an opportunity to debate.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Look, I was one of the people that backed the community at the time and didn't want to fill in the pond. I think there were one or two councillors, Yvonne obviously putting a hand up, but the decision of council is a decision, and we went with that. And now that we can see the iwi have given it a name, I think it's very appropriate, and it was never going to be a Modeller's Pond forever. So I'm very grateful that this is now progressing, and hopefully the whole community can get behind it and enjoy whatever it is that's going to be created, and the initial plans look great. So I'm looking forward to seeing the completion of this project, and thank the iwi for the name. I think it's a lovely name. Thank you.
And have I got Councillor Bowater for debate? Is that right?
Thank you. I'd like to echo exactly what Councillor Noonan has just said. She and I were a little bit reluctant because it seemed to be such a community who were quite passionate about their asset and what they had there and the experiences that they'd all had with the Modellers Pond. But I acknowledge that we have moved on, and I also acknowledge that we've been given this wonderful name, and it's very fitting. However, I do support, but I am quite mindful of the fact of bringing everyone on the journey. And I just want to make sure that when we are going through this, we are definitely engaging with all aspects of the community to make sure that they are also embracing what we're doing today. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowater. We'll put any other debate before I move it. I've got Councillor Edgar. Going to take this for the voting. Okay, I'll put it. Those in favour, aye. Give me a moment. Put my tick up. I think of those in favour, aye. Can see everybody there. Just let me just glance across. Those against, will be across. You carried. Thank you. Just give a moment as we untick. Hey, thank you for that before, and thank you for the report there. Before I move on, I just note we've got our youth councillor here, youth councillors, and I see you've got James Iverme, and I've got one other. Yeah, am I missing some? Oh, cheers, Dalton. Very good, right in the middle of my screen. Hey, thank you, guys. Actually, that moves us on to quite nicely onto the youth report. So I'll hand it over to youth councillors James and youth councillor Zoltan. Far away. So I've got a document printed out in front of us. I think we've all got that. But you guys take it away.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's nice to be back. So yeah, Zoltan and I are here today. We had the privilege of being re-elected to the Nelson Youth Council for 2022, so should be a good year ahead. So over the past few months, since I think the last report which was given to this committee was in September or around September, but that could be wrong. Anyway, since then, we have had our Youth Council induction, which Councillor Neil Stevens attended, and that was held on the 25th of January this year. We had our first meeting on the 14th of last month, which was via Zoom. So there were some hurdles to cross on that. But no, it went really well. And Charles Rainey was the chair. He did a really good job at leading that. What else? Yeah, so we moved a motion to, and it was passed to adopt the key performance indicators document, which Councillor Skinner says you've all got in front of you. So yeah, that entails 2 submissions from Youth Council as a whole. The one Youth Council initiated project, for example, last year we were going to do youth lanes, but COVID cancelled that. We are going to attend at least 10 council meetings and subcommittee meetings. And the ambassador's role is upon request of the mayor, so really that's up to her worship to let us in on that, but any opportunities we will take up with that. And then anything initiated by council, Youth Council hopes to work with at least 3 different groups, if that made sense. And also last month there was the Sister Cities AGM and banquet, which we had a representative on there. I think it's Isla Kennard is our representative on the Sister Cities group. So she attended that, and we've also got our social media up and running now, which is brilliant. So we're just cycling through all of 2022's youth councillors, getting all of those up there, so schools can become a little bit familiar with them. And we're also working with the Ministry of Education, Ron Kelly, about the changes being made to NCEA over the next few years. We're definitely getting somewhere with that. He's coming to talk to schools because there were a lot of questions with things that happened last year during NCEA. I was also selected last year to be on the youth sector leadership group as a rep from Youth Council. So we had our first meeting there on the 25th of January, and I think you'd all be familiar with it. Your main role is to distribute funding among youth groups and I think there's quite a large theme among youth into governance this year. I think that's everything I've got written down. Zoltan, do you have anything to add?
Being that this is my first year, I was not present for most of those events that you've just discussed, so I have no comments at this point.
Yeah. Happy for questions.
Okay, thank you for that, James, and thanks for that, Zoltan. I know you guys have been extremely busy through the year and past years, and obviously going to be busy months ahead. Just before I hand over questions, and thank you, James. You mentioned about social media. What was that you were referring to? You've got some social media up. Is that something when you were linking up to past and present?
So Youth Council, we have our Facebook page and our Instagram page. And so that's just where we're going to post pictures of events we attend throughout the year, just to make sure that, you know, everyone knows what we're doing, that sort of thing. Everyone knows why we exist. But at the moment, we're just like sending out pictures of everyone from this year's Youth Council with a wee description.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I look forward to checking it out. Thank you. I've got Councillor Edgar, a question.
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure if you know, but how many new members do you have versus how many members from last year who were reappointed? What's the sort of, turnover of fresh faces, I guess?
I'll just check our membership list, but from what I remember, a lot of it is we've got a lot of new members this year, mainly in years 11 and 12, but we've got a lot more year 10s than we did last year, which is brilliant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got 7 out of about 20. I think 20, maybe a bit less than 20 old members, 7. So yeah, not many.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant.
Just a question on the selection of youth council members. So are young people involved in the selection of youth council members, or how, is there involvement somehow, so say there's a bunch of year 13s who go, look, we're not going to be, eligible, or we're not going to be standing next time. So they would have, for example, could have a role in selecting, the next youth councils. Is there a role at all currently?
Yeah, absolutely. But keep in mind that we don't know half the people that apply. We only know them if we know them. So what happens is Rach Large, our coordinator, will send out a list of everyone who's applying, and then everyone gets the chance to email her privately saying, yep, this person should be able to contribute this. I really recommend this, or I don't know this person, so that I can add no comment. And then, but the final decision goes up to a panel of, I think, anonymous people. So I don't know who's on it. And yeah.
Oh, no, I'm just really glad to hear that, the youth councillors get a role in that. And maybe you could always do, like little interviews or something like that, so that you all get to, sort of get, someone on paper versus someone in person. It could just sort of show great writing skills versus, maybe someone who doesn't. And yeah.
Yeah, Rach normally does interview the people when they apply in person. And I think she did manage to get through them all last year. And in 2020, going into 2021, we invited, that includes me being invited there because I wasn't on youth council at that point. We were invited to a youth council meeting, but for various reasons, we couldn't do that again in 2021, going into 2022.
Lovely. Thanks so much, James. That was really great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Cheers. Appreciate it. Thank you, James and Zoltan, on that. I've got Yvonne.
Not so much a question, but an acknowledgement. Am I allowed? Is this a good time?
Yeah, far away.
Thanks, Tim. I mean, Chairperson Skinner.
No, we're good.
I just like to take a quick moment to acknowledge Youth Councillor James. What happened is that we had the dawn blessing of the skate park in Stoke, and he spoke really, really well. And I'd just like to take a moment, because we didn't get the time to do it then, but I'd just like to publicly now say thank you very much, James. You represented the Youth Council very well in your role, and I was very impressed with what you had to say. In fact, if I dare I say it, it was the speech of the morning. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Councillor Bowater. It was a brilliant morning.
Well put, well put. Thank you.
It was
Very good.
indeed.
Cool. Hey, thank you for that. We'll move on to the next item. So the next item is fees and charges for the 22-23 year, and let's go to pages 17 in your report. And have we got, is it Rosie, are you presenting this? Thank you.
Kia ora
All good.
koutou. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Through the chair, I'd just like to bring everyone's attention just to a couple of formatting errors within the report at 6.6 and 6.14. So we incorrectly recorded 21-22 year, and it should be 2022-23. And also just at 3.6, just the referencing there has been slightly round the wrong way at 6.8 and 6.15, just referencing other sections within the report. So just in the way of a summary, this year's fees and charges, the majority for the Community and Recreation Committee is just increasing by CPI. But those fees that are outside the increase, we are showing as the proposed increase, which is just for cemeteries and cremation, and then new fees or changes to fees. And this is really just about practical implementation of those fees for our users of the venues, just to make more simple and more streamlined for our users. And from there, I'm really happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Just looking around, any questions in regards to that report? We've got Councillor Edgar. I put a microphone in my mistake.
So just the change in the lending period for bestsellers. I see the changes from $5 to $3. Can we just clarify what the change in the lending period is, please? Because it's not specifically stated in the report.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Edgar. Through the chair, apologies for not having that information made clear. So the change in lending period is from a 2-week loan for $5 to a 1-week loan for $3. We have had that on trial and it has been really well received. So we'd like to proceed with that.
Thank you. And then just a couple of questions on the cemetery charges. So what would our recovery be if we only increased by CPI? Would we still be within our target within the revenue and financing policy?
Through the chair, yes, we would be still within that recovery. The thought behind increasing it is to cover those direct costs for the increase in fuel, but otherwise, yes, we would be.
Okay, thank you.
So Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably Rosie, cemeteries, just a question on the cemeteries first. With the new fees, how close are we to TDC's fees? I think we've had it in prior reports, but not on this one. So just because we're signing it out, are we closer to the fees that TDC charge? I think there's one more.
Oh, through the chair, so I'd need some time just to go away and compare that. I know we've done that in the past, done that comparison. But I would just need some time to go away and redo that comparison without.
I'm not going to ask you to do that. I just recall that ours were quite a bit lower at one point, and I just wondered how much closer we had got to them. No, I'm not going to send you off to do that, Rosie. The other question I've got is regarding community properties and the Putanga, bear with, Putangi, Green Meadows. We've got new fees there. Did we not charge anything before for all those ones? I mean, it says that, but I can't sort of believe that we haven't been charging fees before.
Oh, through the chair, thanks for that question. It's a really good one. No, it's the reason for the change at Putangi Green Meadows is around that community groups were coming and asking for those charges of having an hour charge, and we never had that as a set fee. So that's just that more practical implementation that we can meet the needs of the users.
Okay, I think that's a really good idea. Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for that. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the report, Rosie. I can't see it on here, and it is a bit of a tangent, but if you will indulge me, it would be great. The Superloo, if we stop charging people for the Superloo, do you have any idea what it would cost us?
Through the chair, I could certainly work that out for you, but it is a contractual arrangement we have with our contractors, and they keep the income from that charge. So it's an incentive for them through the contract, which helps them encourage the use of the facility. So I couldn't tell you a direct amount at the moment, but I'd be happy to go away and find that out for you.
I'd appreciate that. I'm often sort of, I find it in this increasingly cashless society, I often wonder how the Superloo operates, given that, a lot of people aren't walking around with change, and I don't know if you want to use FPOS for that. Do people use FPOS for the Superloo?
Through the chair, interesting question. I was just there 2 weeks ago doing a safe work observation, and I was suitably amazed at the number of people that came through the Superloo, and yes, they all had their sort of 20 cents ready to pay, but also a lot of people are using the showers and the laundry, and also using the lockers. So it is well used. We do get all of those numbers from our contractors, and also the income that they receive through our monthly reporting. So happy to forward that information on to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Edgar, the question.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Sorry. Other question, which I did also send through earlier, was just on the Founders Park, the proposal to remove the off-peak rate and just make it a low impact community event rate. I'm just, I know there's not a lot of events off peak, but just wondering what's the harm of keeping it there just in case, or, still as an incentive?
Through the chair, the price is very, very low for that fee. So when you consider the amount of time that they get the park for, the amount of staff time that it takes to support them with their pack in, pack out, then it really does feel like it's a subsidised rate, which isn't necessarily appropriate for a commercial event.
Very good. Can I have someone move this recommendation? Moved by Councillor McGurk, second by Councillor O'Neill-Stevens. Any debate? Thank you. I'll put it, those in favour, the green tick, and I'll put those against, put the red cross. Those in favour, those against, carried. Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Rosie and team. So our next item, I'm just conscious of time. Our next item is the request for assistance for Trafalgar Centre hire. I'm happy to move straight to that now, or do people need a bit of a break? I'll take that as move straight to the next item and then have a break.
And have a break after it.
Right, very good. That's my thinking as well.
That at the team.
Yep, my thinking as well. Very good. Okay, moving on to the next item is a request for assistance from the Nelson Giants for Trafalgar Centre hire, pages 42 to 66. And Andrew,
again.
sorry, Rosie again. Very good. Thank you.
Just for this report, And unfortunately, just a couple of minor errors again at 1.1, just in that very first sentence, it's just the fee for the Trafalgar Centre for the 2022 National Basketball League season, and also just at 5.14, another just slight error. I had the word of instead of or, so the decision to cap the funding per season or per game. So I think in terms of the request coming through from the Giants, preceded the red traffic light system that's now on them. They do have some real concerns about funding this year with their availability to have spectators at their event being limited at 100. So their financial concerns are quite real. And I will just take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. I've got Councillor Courtney, Councillor Edgar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to indicate to you early on that I'm happy to move this recommendation. I think it's the appropriate course to follow. Yep. When you look at the officer's report on this, rather than us as a committee this morning try and solve their funding issues by, using unbudgeted funds or anything like that. So referring it to the NRDA and EDC, who administer the Events Hire Fund, as it's recommended, is a sensible approach. And there are funds available from the report I read, sufficient almost to meet the requirements, perhaps not quite. So those funds should be used for this purpose. And I will indicate to you at this point that I'm happy to move at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Courtney. I'll give it as a question as we're happy to receive your commentary there. Very good. Thank you for the heads up. And I've got Councillor Edgar, Councillor Laurie.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I've just got a question around, I guess, the process of this again, because, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but, there's an application letter from the 16th of January, but everyone who I know who has applied to the NRDA, for use of the Venue Hire Fund doesn't do so through a resolution of council. So back in January, could staff have not said to them, oh, it would be good for you to apply to this fund first? Because when we look at the options, it's got, we could part fund depending on how much money they get from NRDA and things like that. It's just we're now in March, nearly 2 months later. By then we could have known whether they got NRDA money or not, and if so, how much, which would have then maybe changed this. So sort of, we make this resolution today. Now they then have to go off to NRDA. And then what happens if, something's happened, they get declined, it might have to come back here for us to reconsider. So I'm just wondering why, we don't normally resolve for someone to apply for the Venue Hire Fund, and they could have been doing that back in January. Just wondering why this process was chosen.
Through the chair, if I can attempt to answer that. It's a very, very good question, and I think hindsight's a wonderful tool. I guess we've followed previous years' requests from the Giants, and the Giants came directly to us for that funding, which has traditionally come to committee. And it was in terms of asking committee for unbudgeted expenditure when we did realise that this fund was under expended. But I believe you make a very good comment there, Councillor Edgar.
Thank you. So just, Mr. Chair, I think we need to make sure Andrew's waving his hand.
I'll just get a button there. Andrew, welcome to answer.
Thank you. It's a really good question, Councillor Edgar. I think the approach we've taken here, and the Giants are, I would expect, as an organisation, as experienced and competent as they are, would be looking at all sorts of funds, not just relying on the ratepayer to support them. That would be their normal course of approach. And sorry, did you hear that? My microphone was
that even clearer now. Crystal clear.
So that would be their normal course of approach, and I would think we would have encouraged that as well. So they made a formal request to council for funding, and I think it would have been problematic for staff to go back to them and formally say to them, go and seek other funds before you come to us. So I think the process of coming through committee is completely appropriate on that basis, because council needs to respond to their request. So maybe the only real question in here is whether we should have put anything in the report about suggesting that they go to RDA to access the facilities hire fund that is funded by council.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with the comments Andrew has made about we need to formally respond to a request. I still think that it could have been helpful back in January to go, did you know about, we're not going to get to this until a March meeting. In the meantime, you could do this. I guess it's that, you know, yes, there's a formal response, but it's the working with partners. And I guess my question follows up with that is, do we need to keep a window open if for some reason NRDA declines the request, or you know, something else happens? I mean, I guess we're not formally, there's nothing in here actually formally declining their request, and I don't know if we actually have to formally respond to their request, because all it says is it receives it, and I guess, yeah, approves referring, so that's our response. So yeah, does the window stay open?
Hi, Andrew. You got to respond?
Sort of. So that's another good question. So I think it's important to appreciate that Rosie and the team have been talking with the Giants right throughout this process. So there's been information going backwards and forwards throughout this process. It's not just a matter of receiving an application and then running an internal council process. So so there's been plenty of conversation going on there. In terms of next steps, if NRDA decides not to support the application, then I suppose it is possible that the Giants might come back to council and make that request again. And I don't know, maybe the committee today wants to take a position on that, but it wouldn't be as well an informed position as perhaps it would be later once we knew what the NRDA had said. I think we would be hopeful that NRDA, without trying to influence their decision, we would be hopeful that NRDA would support this application, because it does, in a lot of ways, fit quite well within the terms of the facilities hire fund.
Yes, thank you. I don't feel similarly that we should be preempting anything today. I see it as options, but we don't know the outcome. So yeah, we shouldn't be preempting anything. Yeah, just a pity that they didn't apply to them sooner, because we could have been having a different discussion today. Thank you.
Cheers to that, and echo the officers' comments on that. It's something I think they've been very forthright in coming to us and letting us know where they're at, and I've appreciated that. And I think it was good that we had this report, so it's all, we understand where it's at, because much of this was prompted 3 seasons ago, for 2 years, when we were looking at the sort of funding and the management change of the Trafalgar Centre. So I appreciate them coming to us, and they had come to us quite early, which was really good, and I appreciate the work the staff have been communicating with basketball. So I think it's good that that report is here, and it makes it very transparent for us around this table, where things are at and where things may move from there. I've got Councillor Laurie. Question.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, whenever we get these sorts of requests, I'm always mindful of precedent, the precedent it sets. I see in the report it does say that one of the disadvantages, if we were to approve this, the request, is that other groups may also request a discount. Could staff give us any indications to the number of those groups, who those groups might be, just so we've got a better idea of the landscape?
Through the chair, so to date we haven't had any further requests from any of the community organisations for a discount for the Trafalgar Centre. But it is, you know, it's always likely that people may ask for that, but to date we don't have any other requests sitting on the table.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. List topics in regards to this item. Thank you. I've got Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go to Rosie and just ask, can you just confirm for us, please, the funds that are still available that could be used? There were funds from last year, 2020, I think 2021, and there are funds this year. So there are adequate funds there to meet their request. Could you just expand on that a bit more for us, please?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. There are adequate funds to cover this. There's also different ways that NRDA may look to split it up, because the basketball season actually crosses over 2 of our financial years past the 1st of July. So there's certainly adequate funds there to cover it, and more than so if they cover over the 2 different financial years. And at the recommendation of NRDA is to leave a buffer there of at least 5,000 for any other community groups that may approach them this year. So yes, there is. Thank you.
So I've had Councillor Courtney move it. Can I have someone second?
I'm happy to second it, Tim.
Thank you, Councillor Sanson. So I've had it moved and seconded. Any debate? No debate. I'll put it. Those in favour, the green tick. Those against, a red cross. Thank you. I'll say that was carried. Thank you for that. So we'll have a break. We'll have a break there before we go into our next item. So we're happy with a 10-minute break, or would they rather a 5-minute break? Hands up for 10. Okay, very good. 10-minute break. So I make it 10:01. So come here at 10:12. 11 minutes. Very good. 10:12 back in here. And if everybody can be fairly smartly back in there, because we can get this done. There's not too many more items to go. Thank you. Just remember to mute. Very good. Just give a moment for everybody. Governance providers, you're all good for us to start?
Yes.
Thank you. Cool. Very good. I think we've got everybody here. Get started. So the next item is on page 67. It's the NetScan Friends Bay Dreams Self 2022 review. Thank you for that. Cool. We've got Axel here. Thank you for that. We've got students unfortunately away, been called out today. So I've got Axel here presenting. So if we've got page 67, take it as read, but Axel, let you take it from there. I'll hand it over to you, Axel.
Councillors.
Thank you.
I believe you have read the report. I'm ready to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for that. Read the report. Any questions? No, very good. Very good report and another very good event, and another challenging time, especially in the arts and events period going past and going forward. And I was very impressed with how they were able to pivot or change to accommodate the change of situation for this next ski event. Thank you. I've got a question from Councillor Edgar and then Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, mine was just a comment, really. I was talking to a CLM staff member and they were so excited by the waste minimisation activities and the outcome that was able to be achieved, that I know in other venues they're really embedding deeper, more waste minimisation activities. So, you know, it's always great to see these trickle outs. I mean, ultimately, it would be great if there wasn't a need for so much waste minimisation, because the products, you know, bring your own or whatever. But yeah, waste minimisation is a great start.
Yeah, there's a lot of positives taken from this topic. I've always been very impressed and these organisers and the organisers that they use here in Nelson to make this happen. Thank you. I've got Councillor McGurk, Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to move the recommendation. It was the report just confirms that it was a very well planned, well organised, and well delivered event. And the report, the review was very heartening reading and puts us in a good position for maintaining this kind of event for future years. So let's hope it can happen.
I'd like to second.
And thank you for that. So I've had it moved by Councillor McGurk and seconded by Councillor Fulton. I'll just take some more questions if need be. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Officer Axel about the input from council officers. Is it declining year on year, or is it is the involvement by council's management team as great now as it was 2 years ago? Or just tell me, please, if you can, briefly, the degree of involvement by our council management team.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Courtney. It's a difficult question to answer, to be honest, because these last 2 years have been so different from the usual Bay Dreams. So it is not comparable. I mean, this year NetSky was around 4,000 attendees, and 2 years ago we had 17.5. So different scale means different involvement of council staff. So we're hoping that in the future we go back to full-scale event, and then I'll be probably able to have an element of comparison.
Mr. White.
Can I just follow up with what do you anticipate going forward? What is your, your projected sort of involvement in this sort of event from a council staff management point of view? Is it to let it run itself, or do you think you'll have ongoing input? And you can tell me the reasons for that, please.
Through the chair, it is, if they go back, which we hope, to a full-scale event, and I understand they are currently thinking of different models to run the event, there'll be a consistent level of involvement from staff. It may certainly not be as high as the first year, because there was a lot of groundbreaking investigation and inquiries to do. But for a large-scale event of what they would like to achieve, which is between 17 and 25,000, there will be staff involvement, definitely.
Andrew, I think it's going to comment.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So
I think you put your microphone closer.
Done it again. I think Axel's answered those questions pretty fully. But from my point of view, I think the management input, Councillor Courtney, has decreased, and it's partly because of the scale of the event this year, but also because the mobilisation and upfront organisation of a new program like we've got with Bay Dreams takes a lot of effort. So I'll be quite honest that I've played very little role in this year's organisation. The team from Mark Preston Thomas downwards have carried this for council extremely well, without me having to dabble in it, and that's, for me, that's completely appropriate for an event like this. They've done a great job. They can do a great job because the systems and structures have been set up so well. But Axel is right that because we are the venue, we will always have a significant role to play in events that use our venues, and we also do want to support these big events that bring so much benefit to Nelson and to the region as well. So we will continue to play a part. But that was a very good question, because we don't need to continue with the same level of time investment that we do, that we put in the establishment of something this significant. But other events may come along, Councillor Courtney, that require us to invest that heavy load at the start again, and we're open to that.
No, thank you for that, and there's some good comments through there. It's an event which has really showcased not just our facility, but showcased Nelson, and it's really showcased a lot of other organisations and businesses and charitable groups that work in with us to make it very successful, both financially, environmentally, and socially. And it creates, to use the word, slipstream for other events to kick in. So it is very important this goes well, but it's highlighted a lot of good things. So thank you for the report, and thank you on that. I've got Councillor Laurie.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I know that camping on site was cancelled this year because of the less demand and smaller event. But in the past, we've seen something happening here, which happens at other events around the country, which is people turn up, they buy a tent, they use it for that one event, and then they dump it. And I'm wondering whether we've seen any change in that culture since we saw that a couple of years ago. Was there any indication from where our visitors were camping this time that they weren't doing that, or that had changed, there was less of it?
Through the chair, the last time there was camping, the tents that were left were actually donated to a charity for them to be used. So they weren't, they were dumped by the owners, but they were taken by the organizers and passed on to a charity group who used it for other purposes. So it was not lost, didn't go to waste, so that was cool. Yes, camping this year was cancelled. I know that Bay Dreams crew is thinking of, so they have in mind to recycle tents that are left, and we'll see what the plan will be when they'll come with a proposal back to council.
That sounds good. Through the chair, recycling a tent that's made very cheaply, that is going to fall apart very quickly, I don't know if is necessarily something we want to overly encourage. I mean, if there are some tents left behind at these events and they get given to community groups to help with people who need shelter, that's great. But I do hope that in the future, we will try to discourage people from buying stuff to use it once and then leave it behind.
No taken. I think not taken, but this is just keep in mind, this is receiving a report and there was no camping there, but it's something that we have tackled, I think, very well in the past event, and it's definitely coming forward on that. I just want to make sure we're keeping on topic.
Okay, well, I'm trying to stay on topic. I hope I'm not straying too far off topic with my next question, Mr. Chairman, and it goes like this. Are we seeing any evidence of the Facebook effect, where something starts and it's huge with the kids and then their parents start infiltrating it and kind of making it less fun for kids?
Through the chair, I'm not sure I understand the question correctly. What do you mean?
So when Facebook started, it was very popular with young people, and then their parents caught on, and their parents started getting on Facebook, and then the young people didn't want to be on Facebook anymore, so they went to Instagram. This can happen with events too, and I'm just wondering whether we're seeing anything like that happening with Bay Dreams.
Through the chair, yeah, that's more of a Bay Dreams question, because they monitor everything from their end, and I'm sure, knowing how connected they are to the audience, they will tap into every social media channel to make sure they engage with the audience. But I can't say more than that. Yeah.
I'll move on. Any other questions? Thank you. I've had it moved by Councillor McGurk. I've had it seconded by Councillor Fulton. Just remember, it's just receiving a report.
I'd like to debate.
Okay, so I'll go into
Sorry,
debate.
I have a comment. I have a comment, not really a debate. I have a comment.
Well, I'll go into debate. Opening on debate, and there's an opportunity to put your comment in as part of your debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I'm somewhat surprised by Councillor Laurie's question, because I actually went to the event and I thought it was fantastic. My daughter thought I'd hate it because I've never listened to drum and bass before, but it was probably the best lighting show I've ever seen in my life. And the audience was just amazing. It was so inclusive, and I think youth love hanging out with people of all ages, and they loved that I was there, and we just had such a great time, and I was super, super impressed by the audience, the behaviour of the audience, the people pushing past and saying sorry every time they tried to move through the crowd. So respectful and beautiful people having a really great time. I think it was perfect timing in terms of the COVID sort of pandemic. At least it happened, unlike many other festivals. And such a beautiful day, beautiful weather, and the composting of all the water cups were just freely available, but all compostable. I just couldn't believe how well organised it was by the Bay Dreams organisers, and the stage, the sound, the lighting was just next level. It was unbelievable how good it was. So I just want to, if you could pass that back on to the organisers, but as a mature adult, I very much enjoyed myself and loved it, and the audience seemed to enjoy me being amidst their crowds. In fact, lots of them, we had some really great conversations. So thank you for bringing that kind of thing to Nelson. I think it's great, and I think it's great when everyone feels welcome to all events.
Okay, any other debate or commentary? Thank you. I'll put it. Those in favour? Aye with a green tick. Those against? A red cross. A woman support. That's put it. Carried. Thank you. That moves us on to the quarterly report. Switches pages. You've got that there. Quarterly report pages 76 to 114. This is the last item before we go to confidential. Councillor Courtney, do you have a question there? Just get your microphone.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the most important issue in the report on page 87, 6.9, and that's to do with 7% increase in Nelson Tasman region, the highest in the country for people not in employment, not in education, not in training. So I want to know from our officers, you know, is there something more? Is there more we can do from a governance point of view, from governance level, to help this situation?
Thank you for the question. And we've got presenting a report we've got Mark Preston Thomas, is that right? No, very good.
Through the chair, thanks very much for that question. This is a space where the community partnerships team is incredibly active in terms of the not in an employment, education and training space. We've got a project underway already with Presbyterian Support, which is very actively working with those young people who are being identified at risk, and that is proving very successful. At a more strategic level, we're also working with the Ministry of Education and the in MSD, looking at bringing those numbers down and making sure that young people who are at risk or have become disconnected do have some real options to bring them back into play. So we really do appreciate the support from the governance level. We really appreciate the resource that's been approved by the LTP, and we're very actively now using that to make a difference.
Thank you for that. Very good question, and thank you, Margaret. So please keep us informed as a committee on things you think that we need to give council more support on in those areas, organisations that we can react to. But I know that's something you and Mark and the team work very hard on, but highlighting that.
Can I draw Officer Preston Thomas out just a little bit further, if I may, Mr. Chair? You do mention in your report, and I'm grateful for it, thank you, for touching on this very important matter. But you do say that you're in further collaboration and exploring other options. Is it too early for you to give us a taste, an indication of what those collaborations are and what you're actually exploring in this area, please?
As you just said, we are at the exploring stage, and I'd be a little uncomfortable preempting where that may lead us. So, but I'd be happy to report on that on an ongoing basis via the quarterly report.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've got Pat here, I think, wants to answer as well.
So I was at a meeting of the Regional Skills Leadership Group yesterday, and we're charged with developing a regional workforce plan. And one of the sections in that plan will be on rangatahi. And that NEAT section is exactly what we're focusing on. One of the issues is a lack of not enough people in the workforce to meet the needs of all the industries. And so one of the solutions has to be to make sure that school leavers do not slip through the net, but do make that successful transition. That's something that's very close to my heart. And I think that I'm expecting that document, when it's produced, will have a section on how we tackle that. And that workforce plan then provides very clear guidance to training providers in terms of where they are expected to provide priorities for the region. So I think within the next 4 to 5 weeks, you will be seeing a piece of work coming that way. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eager.
Thank you. So, yeah, my questions relate to 5.2 and 5.3 in the report, and both essentially say the same thing. Firstly, Modeller's Pond Solution is 629 behind budget, which is further detailed in the project sheet, and Maitai Mountain Bike Hub is 721 behind budget, which is further detailed in the project sheet. But the project sheets on 110 and 112 don't really detail anything. So can we get some, I mean, there's, I think, a couple of sentences on one, maybe similar on the other, but everything is green: quality, time and budget. So if we're behind, then would one of those not be green? And yeah, since it's not detailed in the project sheets, maybe we could get a verbal update on those two, please.
Kia ora koutou. Look, both of those projects are tracking really well, and I think that's really just a financial phasing matter. So I would rely on the project sheets over the commentary and that. I think it's a financial term that it's behind. It's a capital project, and over the year of the project, there's probably less that's been spent, but it certainly will.
Okay, thank you. Next question is just in relation to the refinery earthquake strengthening, the project sheet on page 113. There's no, I mean, we know the budget, or the time's gone red, the budget's gone yellow. Have we made decisions yet as to how much needs to go into the AP? And if not, when is that coming forward? What's the process going forward on that?
I'll speak to that. So there's a provisional sum in the annual plan for the refinery based on the current council's current intent for the refinery building. But as elected members know, the estimate to undertake the work is higher than was previously budgeted. There is a workshop being scheduled for April for councillors to reconsider the business case for that project.
Lovely, thank you. And Stoke Memorial Hall, again, the project sheet. It's got the budget at green and the time at green, but all of that needs to be pushed out, doesn't it? And changed to reflect some of our more recent discussions.
Kia ora koutou. For the Stoke Hall project sheet, the green colouring relates to this year's budget. So it's green for this year's budget, but you're right in that we'll be needing to push out the construction budget, and we've done that through the annual plan to a future year.
Okay, thank you. Someone's got some sound coming through in the background. And then finally, just on Stoke Youth Park, just there's been a lot of reports of vandalism, graffiti, etc. Not just there, but as we know, at the Green Meadows Cafe as well. So various locations. Just wondering how the youth park is and what we're needing to do, if anything, to deter any ongoing behaviour of that nature.
Through the chair, thank you very much for that question. Yes, this is a issue that where park staff are dealing with along with the community partnerships team. We are aware it is a real issue. We're working closely with the police along with Whanaka Youth, and we have a meeting planned to go there and look at some of the issues that we're dealing with and how we can best address them involving the police in those issues.
Great, and the more we can work with any other impacted parties in the community, since it's not specific to the youth park, that would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. No other questions? Very good. Can I have someone happy to move receiving of this report? Moved by Councillor McGurk, seconded by Councillor Neil Stevens. Assume there's no debate. I'll put it. Those in favour?
There is a debate. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. There is a debate. My hand's up.
Oh, very good. I missed that. Very good. I never saw that handing up, but very good.
Can I?
Councillor Courtney.
Mr. Chair, I'm really heartened by what our Chief Executive has told me in response to a question this morning about his involvement on a regional basis in a workforce plan for those people, particularly our young people that are not involved in employment, education and training. Hear from our officer, Mark Preston Thomas, about the work they're doing, because this is, as I said at my question time, at the moment I asked my question, this is incredibly important. I was, Mr. Chair, if I can digress for half a second, I was reading a thesis someone gave me, their son's thesis on the 1935 depression. And no other council in New Zealand did more than the Nelson City Council did at that time. They employed something like 2,000 married and those not married men on part-time work, and spent an incredible amount of money building the track up to the centre of New Zealand and filling in the Pioneer Park and round where the Croquet Club is now. All of that work was done at that time. And in that thesis, it said quite plainly that Nelson City Council did more than any other council in New Zealand at that time. And I'm so pleased that we're not going to be left dragging our feet on this one, because look, you and I and everyone on the Zoom today knows that employment, jobs is critical. It's one of those things that's touched my emotions, and it's a basic human right, and everyone should have access to work. And to think that this council, local Nelson City Council, is doing this and collaborating with our neighbours in the region on this very important topic warms my heart, and I'm delighted with it. And I want to say that if there's any urgency can be given to this matter at our level, I'm saying this so Officer Preston Thomas can hear, if there's any urgency that can be given to this, it would be appreciated by all of us at governance level, because nothing is more important, in my view, than access to work. So just want to express my delight at that, the responses I got.
Well, thank you for that. If I'll take the opportunity for debate, totally support your good words there, Councillor Courtney, and I thank your team. And as I'll echo when it came up in discussion a few minutes earlier, we will keep in touch with Mark Preston Thomas and the team, and as we've done in the past, anything we can do to help support and get the ship running smoothly. But community is what this committee is. It's community and recreation, and everything you do, whether it's physical, mentally, it's all about community as a team. And I often would call Nelson as a Nelson City. I like to think of us as a close-knit village rather than a city, and it's looking out for your neighbours. It's doing things we do individually as individual people without blowing a trumpet about it. And I know the staff at this council also do a lot of things that we don't see and the community don't see, just on one-on-one or with groups and organisations. And that's when we, as a council governance, are able to support that, once again, without blowing the trumpet or putting a spotlight on things. Just we're there to enable, and from a governance perspective, for our staff, but even more so for our staff and a council as a whole, to support our community. But it does come down to individuals looking out for your neighbourhood, etc. And we're in a very privileged position as city councillors, blessed position to be able to we can lend a hand. So once again, it takes on the goodwill of each of us to do that. And I think you've highlighted an extremely good thing there, Councillor Courtney. We get caught up with politics, we get caught up with process, we get caught up with finance, we get caught up with a lot of things. And in that, we can forget what we're there to do. And once again, I refer to Nelson as a village where we look out for each other's needs. And that's what been highlighted there. And thank you, Councillor Courtney, highlighting it again. So I'll echo that and follow up on what your commentary there, that will keep into Pat and the team, if we can just keep us informed on that, and anything that we can do as a governance team to support that come and give the community, looking out for those. And the young people coming through, it's very much about, I mean, we've all been young, and when you're coming out of school, you're not knowing where or what you should be doing. And some of us in our middle age don't always know what we're supposed to be doing, but it's when you're having that support of people around you that you know that what you're doing is a contribution to the community, and having a job or so forth is very much part of that confidence and self-worth. So thank you all, but that's just my bit there, following on in debate. Any other debate or commentary? Thank you. So receiving this report, I'll put it. Those in favour, aye. Give me a moment. Those against, carried. Thank you. Very good. So I believe.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So I believe that's all we've got for public. A couple of notes I was going to make before we go into confidential. Is that correct? We've covered everything we need to. Going to the governance team, I've covered everything that we need to in public.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
have.
So before we move in confidential, just once again, just while we're still on public here, please make sure that you're in an environment where it is confidential. I know we're working in various environments, home, etc. So just to formalise that, I'll get people to put a green tick up to let us know and let staff know and public know that you're in a confidential environment for the next part of our meeting.
I'm happy to move in when you're ready.
Very good. I've just got Councillor Fulton. There's an indication from Councillor Fulton, and before I do that, and I'll say thank you for our youth councillors, James and Zoltan. Thank you for your input there.
He's just leaving.
Very good.
That's my son. Sorry,
Is he going to put some clothes on?
He'll be so embarrassed. I thought he was just going to stay still. So anyway,
Okay.
just leaving.
Yeah, we're not. Okay. Thank you. You've made my day.
He's gone.
Very good. Thank you for that. So I think I've got everybody here indicated that they're in a
The
confidential.
bird's still here though.
Very good. And it's not. Thank you very much. We'll move into confidential, and I'll leave it to the governance advisors to do the technical part of that. So stay online.
I'll move if you haven't got a mover and a seconder yet.
No, that's
for that,
right.
have
That's
you?
what we haven't. So can I someone move that? Who's that?
I'll move it.
Councillor
I'll
Vaughan.
second it.
Yep. And
Yep.
seconded by
Me. So Gail moved it, I'll second it.
Very good. Well done. Gail moved. Yvonne seconded. Moving into confidential. Put it. Those in favour. Aye. Just a hand raised is fine. Aye. Carried. We're into confidential. I'll just wait for the